Welcome back to Neek's Short Horrors. Today's story is The Woman Next Door. Jack had been working on the old house for 3 days now. It was a quiet, lonely job, just the way he liked it. The place was a wreck, all warped floorboards and peeling wallpaper, but the pay was good. Every afternoon, just as the summer sun beat down the hardest, the woman next door would walk over with a kind smile and a cold drink in hand. She introduced herself as Margaret. There was something old-fashioned about her. Her clothes were neat but outdated, and her hair was pinned back in a style that reminded Jack of black and white movies. Still, she was friendly and polite, and the cold lemonade she brought each day was a welcome break from the heat. They'd chat for a while about the town, the weather, how her house had been in the family for generations. Jack found her presence oddly comforting, even if something about her seemed off. Today was no different. Jack wiped the sweat from his brow as Margaret strolled over, holding out a glass. "You're working too hard in this heat," she said with a warm smile. Jack took the drink, grateful, and downed half of it in one go. "Thanks, Margaret. You're a lifesaver." She laughed softly. "Well, I suppose someone has to look after you." Just as she turned to leave, another voice called out from across the street. "Hey, you." Jack looked up to see an older man standing on the sidewalk, staring at him with a strange expression. Jack waved casually, but the man didn't wave back. Instead, he walked over, glancing nervously toward Margaret, who had already disappeared behind her front door. "You know that woman?" the man asked, his voice low. Jack frowned. "Yeah, Margaret. She lives next door. She's been nice, bringing me drinks and chatting." The man's face paled. "Son, that house has been empty for years." Jack let out a short laugh. "No, seriously. She comes over every day." The man shook his head slowly. "Margaret Ellis went missing 15 years ago. No one's seen her since." A cold chill crept up Jack's spine. "You're joking, right?" He turned to look at the house next door, the one Margaret had walked into just moments ago. It looked different now. The shutters hung off their hinges, the paint was cracked and faded. It didn't look lived in at all. Without thinking, Jack walked up to the front door and knocked. "Margaret?" he called. No answer. He tried the handle, and to his surprise, it creaked open. Inside, the house smelled of dust and rot. Sheets covered the furniture. Cobwebs clung to the corners. His footsteps echoed in the silence as he stepped inside, his heart pounding. On a small table by the doorway, he saw a picture in a tarnished silver frame. It was Margaret, the same kind smile, the same pinned-back hair. But the photo was old, yellowed at the edges. Suddenly, from deeper in the house, he heard a whisper, soft, familiar. "You're working too hard in this heat." Jack spun around, but there was no one there. The glass of lemonade in his hand suddenly felt ice cold, and when he looked down, his stomach dropped. The liquid inside was murky and dark, nothing like the refreshing drink he had moments ago. He dropped the glass, and it shattered on the floor. From the corner of the room, the shadows shifted, and a figure stepped forward. It was Margaret, but her eyes were hollow, empty pits, and her smile stretched too wide. "You should stay a while," she whispered. "I like the company." Jack bolted for the door, stumbling outside into the sunlight, gasping for air. When he looked back, the house was silent again, the door shut tight. The old man grabbed his arm. "Told you, no one's lived there in years." Jack never returned to finish the job. Some things he realized were better left unfinished.